Welcome back to Nothing But Nets. I got a full panel here today. I got Dylan from Nets Press, and I got Jonathan from Everything Brooklyn Nets. You know him from everywhere, every Brooklyn Nets channel, Twitter sphere, everything. I want to get right into this because Dylan is on a little bit of a time crunch, so I want to get to him first. First, give me your initial kind of reaction to when you heard the news, the leak. Are you skeptical of it? Do you think there's smoke to that fire? What were your initial thoughts when you first saw the reports from The Athletic that Cam Thomas was on the trade block?
Yeah, so my first thoughts was there was three scenarios, right? One was either this is, a BS report, somebody just trying to get clicks. Everybody knows the Nets are rebuilding, that a fire sale will happen at some point with the veterans, but, throwing his name in could be just for clicks. The second reason was they've talked contract negotiations and are very far apart. And maybe Sean Marks doesn't feel that there is a world where Cam Thomas comes back on a reasonable deal. And then the third option was just simply gouging his value, right? Seeing what could be out there, because realistically, when you're in a rebuild and when you have two draft classes the way that we have the next 2 years, you tend to, there's always a price for the right person. You know what I mean? So if somebody comes over and gives an offer not similar to what McCall got from the Knicks, but just a deal that you look at and you're just like, wow, he is not worth this, let me take it, then maybe that could be the third reason.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the spectrum of possibilities. I'm going to focus in on those one at a time in just a minute. I want to get John's take first. John, your initial reaction to the Athletic leak that said Cam Thomas was, they were fielding offers, having conversations about trading Cam. What were your thoughts, your initial reaction to that?
Well, first off, Gary and Dylan, it's always great to talk fun basketball with you. Well, like I told you last time, I was just trying to get lunch. The next thing you know, Cam Thomas on the trade block. I'm like, what is going on here? What did I miss? And it's even more crazy because the night before, Cam Thomas got a documentary about him made. So it's like, it just makes you scratch your head and wonder, okay, just when it feels like Thomas is starting to buy into the system, do everything Coach Jordy wants him to do, and you think he's starting to build something for himself, well, now it turns out Marks may have bigger plans down the road that don't involve him. So it was definitely a little confusing for sure. But now it makes you wonder, what is Thomas's market? Because right now there are a lot of teams trying to win right now. They don't necessarily might not want to start him. If he gets traded, he has to be willing to accept a bench role. And a lot of teams might be like, hey, this guy plays like he wants to be a star the rest of his career. That could be hard for our chemistry. So there's a lot of ifs and whens and some negatives potentially with teams getting involved with Thomas. But at the same time, Thomas is playing like a top 10 scorer this year. And it's crazy because NBA media gives this guy such a bad rap and want to rank him like top 100 out of like 80 other players when he's been top 50 this year. So it really makes you wonder just what is Cam Thomas's future going to look like. And now we have to wonder if he's going to be on this team past the trade deadline. I feel if we get past this upcoming trade deadline next year, Thomas will be on this team. But until then, it's going to be interesting to see how these next 2 months with him turn out and if he truly will be on this team. And if Sean Marks does trade him and we don't get something back that's of real value, Marks is going to like a really bad GM. And that's unfortunate for us. So it'll be interesting to see what happens further with this development.
Let me get, because I want to get Dylan's take on this, because I know, John, I know me and you see eye to eye on Sean Marks. I want to get Dylan's take on this. Dylan, just before we get into the specifics with Cam, Sean Marks has been here for several years now. We have a sample size of what he is as a GM. Are you on the Sean Marks bandwagon? Are you on the Sean Marks train? Do you want him here long term to rebuild this, or are you on the same side as me and Jonathan with anyone but Sean Marks, please?
I'm in between. I think that Sean Marks is incredible at what he does in terms of drafting, and I think that's all he should be. I don't trust him in terms of his urgency and the will to build a contender and continue being a contender. And I don't trust him in terms of selling on veterans sooner rather than later before we are in a position where we can't land a top 5 pick. I said it during the offseason. I wanted half of these vets gone before the season began because this is exactly what's going to happen. We're going to overperform. They're going to look great. You're going to start contemplating whether you want to add a star in the offseason or not, and you're going to completely shift your narrative on the reason why you got your picks back to, you know what, let's go and contend again. When, in all honesty, this team in no shape or form is a Giannis away from contending. So for me, I would absolutely love to see, similar to how Brad Stevens in Boston went from a head coach to a GM, I'd like to see that where it's like, instead of Sean Marks being the GM, put him at president of basketball operations, let him do his scouting, let him do his thing. But please, for the love of God, get this guy out of the decision room in terms of who we're trading, when we're doing it. He just lacks urgency in both departments, whether it be when we're trying to win or when we're losing. So I think it's kind of safe to say I'm not as much of a Sean Marks guy. I'm at like the 70% I don't like him, 30% he's doing fine. So that's where I'd put it at.
Great take.
I think there's you touched on a lot of things. I think that there's really good sentiment to what you said. He hasn't been all bad, that's for sure. But like I said, I don't trust him in trades. I hate his timing. I said the same thing you did. Like, this is a half-ass tank. Like, if you really wanted to tank, DFS and Cam Johnson at a minimum should have been gone before the season started. Like, you have these pros who want to win, and then these young guys who are full of piss and vinegar, who are fighting for their NBA careers, fighting for minutes, and they're overperforming. And like, if the Nets win today, they're 7-9. At 7-9, you have some confidence, right? I mean, like, we're not that bad. We went through a tough part of our schedule. If we can get through this road trip, this West Coast trip, the next 3 games after this, we're going to be okay. Like, we're going to come out and we're still in the playoff hunt, and which is a good thing in a sense, but it wasn't what you wanted to do. You wanted the number 1, 2, or 3 pick in the draft, and right now, I don't know if the Nets are going to be in that position. They'll be a top 10 team, I think, but I don't know if they'll finish with one of the 3 worst records in the NBA. So, I mean, if they don't trade these guys, and I do think some of them are going to get traded, but that should have been done by now. I wanted to ask you this, Dylan.
Mm-hmm.
It was reported, and I tend to believe it, that Sean Marks wanted to trade the pick and not draft Cam Thomas, and Kevin Durant, who ran the organization, we all know that, made him pick Cam Thomas. And you've seen Cam Thomas's tenure here. They didn't want to use him, then they didn't want to start him, and then like he kept proving everyone wrong to where he has to be your best player.
Yeah.
Do you think that Sean Marks just doesn't really value Cam Thomas in the same way that some of the fans do and some of the Cam Thomas fans do? Does he just not see that value in him that we see?
I think the biggest problem with that is, from who I've spoken to, it sounds like the current Charlotte Hornets GM, Jeff Peterson, who was originally our assistant GM, is more of the one who is scouting Cam Thomas than Sean Marks was. So I can't confirm whether or not, this was Kevin Durant pulling the trigger on that, if it was Jeff Peterson pulling the trigger on it. To me, the biggest problem is there's clearly a divide in the front office on how we feel about Cam Thomas. And there's a divide between fans. There's fans who think this guy is the next Kobe Bryant. And there's fans who are more realistic and understand that he is replaceable. And I'm on the side that believes he's replaceable. Not because he's not a very good player and because he hasn't improved, but simply because in the current state of the NBA, if you are not a 2-way star, you are a role player. That's really how it is at this point in time. Unless if you are putting up 8+ assists and 8+ rebounds while putting up 30 points a game, you need some form of defense, right? And even though we've seen slight improvements in Cam Thomas's playmaking and rebounding this year, it's nothing at a level of an all-star. He has all-star caliber scoring. He has all-star caliber shot creation and tough shot making ability, but he just doesn't have the all-around form that an all-star needs in today's NBA. And I think that's where I'm more realistic in terms of I'm okay with trading him if it means getting a huge package. Compared to other fans who think that he's the next coming of Jesus because of his scoring ability.
I want to ask you this real quick, and Jonathan, right? You made good points, and I agree with them, but I want to play devil's advocate real quick. Mm-hmm. A lot of the things you're saying about Cam Thomas were said about Jalen Brunson, right? Like a couple of years ago. He's a good scorer, but is he a generational scorer? Is he a great scorer? He's 6'1", and he's a 2. Can he play the point? He can't really play the point. He's really just a scorer. We don't really know if he can carry a team. A lot of the same criticisms. He's not hyper athletic. He's a below the rim player. You have to build an offense. A lot of those same things were said about Jalen Brunson, who's now a top 10 player in the NBA, and every single team would love to have him. I'm not saying that's Cam Thomas, but do you see the similar criticisms that were thrown at Thomas were thrown at Brunson just a couple of years ago?
No, I definitely see it. And I think the biggest problem too is that you have to take pride in who you draft. And I don't think Marks made the decision to draft Cam Thomas, one. And two, no general manager is putting a player that they drafted at 27 over the fact that they have a opportunity to potentially draft somebody in the top 3 of a class that's so loaded. I had this debate yesterday on Breezy's show, and there is genuinely fans out there who believe that Ace Bailey, Cooper Flagg, and Dylan Harper, that not one of them have more potential than Cam Thomas has, which to me is blasphemy. I'll use the Stephen A quote, right? That to me is pure stupidity, because if you're looking at when they were each drafted, probably about, I would say 19 players to 22 players in this draft class this year have more potential than what Cam Thomas had in his own draft class. Because all Cam Thomas had to his game at LSU was scoring. All that he had to his game at Oak Hill was scoring. And that's why he fell in the draft, because you can't be an all-star caliber player for years and years and carry a team if you are just a scorer. Look at the way that James Harden's career has gone, right? He at least has the playmaking side to it. But from a standpoint of his prime in Houston, never made it past the conference finals because all he would do is choke. One, I'm not saying Cam Thomas is a choker because he's not proven that yet. But the point is that when you are a high caliber scorer and a one-dimensional player, you tend to have issues. Look at Luka Doncic this year, right? He's one-dimensional in terms of offense and defense. He's multi-dimensional in terms of offense, but his defense is becoming a problem and the Mavericks are losing. He was a big problem in the finals because defensively he couldn't guard a stick. And that's the biggest problem with players like this. Westbrook, Harden, Luka, all of these guys were incredible scorers in their primes, and all of them had minimal defense, if any. I think that's the biggest problem.
I know you're on a time crunch. I want to get to Jonathan real quick too. Jonathan, your kind of thoughts to Sean. I know you value him, but does Sean Marks not value him? And kind of comment and give your thoughts on what Dylan said.
Well, we're trying to figure out why Marks doesn't like Thomas, and your potential evidence, the fact that Kevin Durant was the one who called the move. Marks had nothing to do with it. So this whole time, Marks has been trying to figure out how to potentially get rid of a guy who's actually become a diamond in the rough for us, a true diamond, actually. And now the way he's playing like a top 10 scorer, the organization did not expect this from Cam Thomas. Nobody did. And how ironic it is that Cam Thomas got to learn from probably 3 of the greatest scorers in this era, in James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, in the time that they were here. And just look at how his game has become more complete, especially even now, the fact he has a real coach. Before Jordy, we didn't have a real coach for Thomas because they didn't trust him. They wanted to bench the guy, let him get some minutes here or there, and then if he made a mistake, they want nothing to do with him. It's unfortunate. Now you have a coach that's actually challenging Thomas to be grittier on defense, which he has, to rebound at a higher clip, which he has, to work on his playmaking, which he has. Even though the vets were missing a lot of shots at the beginning, Thomas has worked on everything we wanted him to work on, and I want to reward that because I was worried that Thomas was just going to be a one-dimensional scorer, and so far this season he's not played like that because he wants a new contract. He potentially wants to be here. And if Marks' now thing is like, hey, I might finally have a chance to trade this guy I never wanted, but it's like, Marks, you're now trying to take big steps when you just got fortunate enough to get your own 2 draft picks back and 6 picks on top of it from the Knicks. And you're acting like you're this top genius when you got lucky with those holes right there. Those teams could have just been like, you know what, we don't want whoever you guys got. We'll just go somewhere else. So Marks needs to realize at the end of the day, yes, we have two huge upcoming drafts right now that could decide our future. But if you let go of Thomas because you want to tank for 2026 to get AJ DeBosa, not having Thomas on his team doesn't guarantee you AJ DeBosa. So that could end up being a really bad for Sean Marks, especially the backlash he'll get from the base. So if he really does trade Thomas, there could be a lot of flack for it and it could potentially not be good for us. But right now, what we have to do is let Thomas keep growing. We're going to have the cap space, re-sign him, and then let's see what his future truly is. Because right now, like LBL said on the comment section, there's not really a huge market for Thomas. There's maybe 1 or 2 teams that might want to take a crack at him. But if they don't have a top offer, we shouldn't be talking about it.
And real quickly, Gary, because I see where you're going with this, and I do have to head out in about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Are we basing Cam Thomas right now off of individual play or impact? That's one. And two, For those of you who are still commenting, because I do read these, I have no desire to trade Cam Thomas. So this is just realistic basketball fan knowledge being used, where if you get a package from a team for Cam Thomas that you cannot say no to, you don't say no to it. It's just that simple. I like Cam Thomas. I think he should be a part of this team for the rebuild process. Yes, I do agree with all of that. But if there's an offer out there where a team gives us something that was like when we looked at the Mikal trade, then yeah, you take it and you don't say no. But yeah, are we basing him in this draft class specifically off of impact or individual play?
Well, see, that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, I'm making you the GM today.
Okay.
If you had to redraft this draft, is he a top 10 guy? Is he a top 5 guy? Or is he out of the top 10? But would you agree, A, that he was underdrafted, that he's better than 27th best player in that draft? And
yes.
B,
yeah.
Okay, yeah. If you were to redraft him, and I'm making you the GM for the day, where would you draft him? 5, 10, or outside the top 10?
Well, let's scroll a bit. I'd take Cade over him. I would take Evan Mobley over him. I'd take Scotty Barnes over him. I would take Franz Wagner over him. Based on potential at the time, I would have taken Jonathan Kuminga over him. Again, based on potential at the time, I would have taken Zaire Williams over him. Same for Moses Moody. If you're talking about today's day and age, I'd take Alperen Sengun over him. I would take Jalen Johnson over him.
What about Trey Murphy?
Trey Murphy, I don't think I would take him over him just because, but I mean, again, that's also a tough decision because the team that he was drafted to had 2 players playing his position. So he's never really had a shot to start and show his true potential, and he's not going to.
Right.
I mean, could he have been a 20-point per game scorer if he was drafted to a team like the Hawks without DeJounte Murray before he got there? Maybe, but we can't determine that. So yeah, I would put Cam Thomas over Trey.
And then Jalen Johnson's another interesting. I would take Cam, but you can make an argument. Jalen is a more complete player.
1,000% a better rebounder. He can play make. He can dribble. He's athletic. He can defend at a high caliber, and he can score when needed. He has a perimeter shot. For a big man, you have to base it off of this too. What do you value more in the NBA, a wing or an undersized guard? 9 times out of 10, you're going to say the wing.
That was my next question. What I was going to ask, what his value? I don't have time for that real quick, but and then everyone after him. So you're saying probably somewhere around 10 you would have taken him, maybe 9, 10, 11, 12 in that range?
I was going to say, scroll up to the top real quick. I'll tell you right now. I'll count them.
Go ahead.
Cade, Mobley, Barnes, Kuminga, Wagner, Moody, Sengun. So he'd be 8 for me.
8. Okay. I mean, I don't think that. Does anyone think that's unreasonable? I mean, there's going to be and John, how about you? Do you agree with him, or would you have taken him higher? I know you would have taken him low. Would you have taken him over any of those guys?
I would
definitely. Go ahead.
I would definitely say he would have cracked top 10 if we redid the draft, just because his scoring, it's really good, because he could be that third option at most on a contending team. And you need a solid third option that can give you 20 plus points a night, and he can give you all the step back threes and just really, attack opposing defenses when he's really cooking. Like what he did against the Knicks, 43 points. He broke down what was supposed to be the best defense in the Eastern Conference, 43 points. Like, that's making a statement to me. And honestly, it's unfortunate that Sean Marks doesn't value what Thomas has worked on, but at the end of the day, if you redo this draft, you can't say Thomas is below 10 right now. He's definitely in that top 10 right now. Now, as far as the Scotty Barnes and Franz Wagner, I gave Franz Wagner a lot of credit. When Paulo went down, I thought the Magic were not going to be that good, and Franz Wagner has really stepped up to be that second star option on the team. So I think he even moves higher in that draft, honestly, just given the fact that he's gone through adversity. I know Evan Mobley is playing good this season, but we haven't seen Mobley carry the Cavs when all the other guys have been hurt. It was mostly Donovan Mitchell. So I would say Wagner even moved up as well. But yeah, Thomas is definitely top 10 based just off of the improvements this year. And if he continues it, at the end of this season, if he's improved on everything like he's doing right now, you can't deny he'd be a top 10 draft pick in this draft if it was redone.
Dylan, you got time for one more quick question, and then you can tell them where they can find you, and you can get to the gym.
I can give an answer. I'm not sure how much longer I could potentially listen to anybody else, though. Not in that way, but you guys.
All right. So, no, I appreciate you hopping on.
Of course.
If you're done with the gym and we're still going, feel free to hop back in. But I wanted to ask you, what do you think fair market value is on Cam Thomas? What's a good, contract for Cam Thomas if you were the GM making the offer? What would you offer him? And then tell them where they can find your podcast and where they can find you.
Yeah. So I would say to me, it's tough because do you package him with Dennis Schroeder or are you packaging him just by himself?
No, I'm just talking about a contract. You're offering a contract in the offseason. As far as
Offering him a contract in the offseason, I would give him a 3-year team option deal because I think at the very least you need to at least see 2 more seasons of him while rebuilding before you actually understand whether or not he's worth a long-term contract fully guaranteed. Mm-hmm. So I would say a 2-year deal with a team option in the 3rd year. And I would say $27 million because there's no reason that a guy should be getting paid over $30 million if he can't do it on both ends of the floor. So I would need a larger sample size for him as a full-time starter and a full-time, building block piece before I determine whether or not he's worth a long-term, fully guaranteed contract.
All right, and you got an excellent podcast. I was you got me on the other day. Appreciate that. Tell them where they can find you, Dylan.
Yeah, if you want, feel free to go subscribe to us on YouTube at the BK Network Podcast or on Twitter at BK Network Pod. And we'll probably be doing another live play-by-play, hopefully within the next couple of days. Can't guarantee anything just yet, but we'll announce it here shortly. So I appreciate you guys for letting me jump on, though. I will make my attempt to jump back on if you guys are still on. So I'll catch you guys later.
Sounds good, Dylan. Appreciate you.
Of course, guys.
All right, John, let me bring that question to you. I'm going to give you GM cap. You get Sean Marks' cap. I thought that 27 is a little low. Just, the Jalen Johnson and Quickly and guys like that got more. And I would gather that if I asked Dylan what he thought about Quickly's contract, he'd probably think that Quickly got overpaid. I would guess because Quickly's a one-sided player too. But what were your thoughts? What would you offer, John? What would you offer Cam Thomas this offseason?
Looking at it, it's interesting because you think about what Jalen Green got. Everybody's been comparing Thomas and Green the last few years, and obviously Thomas has outplayed Green so far this season. And the way the Rockets constructed his deal, it's very unique. They gave him like a 3-4 year contract with like an option in like the 2nd or 3rd year. He's making like $30 million. So if I was the GM, I'd try to make a short-term deal like that. If he doesn't want to give Cam the max, find a good middle-tier deal where he's getting something around 28, 30 million, and he has an option after 2 years. And at that point, the Nets will be done with the 2 main drafts, and they have to decide what type of team are they going to be. Are they going to go after a starter pair with this team, or they go after certain vets, players that fit the system? And at that point, Thomas's option comes up, and it's like, okay, after these 2 years, is Cam Thomas an official star of this team, or is a potential trade option? I think that's a good deal for both sides to agree to, because obviously Thomas, if it's up to him, he wants the max. If it's up to Marks, it's something around 110, 120 at most. So if they could come to a type of Jalen Green type contract, I think it's beneficial for both parties where there's not going to be too much back and forth, and you have a certain amount of time to decide what Thomas's future is on this team or not.
So give me that. Give me the years and the dollar amount. Well, just like short answer. How many years? How many millions per year would you offer Cam Thomas?
Okay, if we're doing like a 4-year contract with like an option on the 3rd year, probably around, there's like probably maybe around 30 million, 120 mil, something like that. To make it 30 million, 30, 60, 90, something like that, I think would be more than fair, because I don't think Marks is going to go up to 40 unless if the Wizards make a $40 million offer to Thomas, Marks would have to give him the $40 million at that point. But you could still do a contract like that where it's up to 160, but you have that option for the 3rd year if Marks and Thomas don't want to continue their relationship with him in Brooklyn. So I think that could work too.
I tend to agree with you. I would say what I would like to do is give me a 3-year deal for $100 million, make it nice and simple. So you're about 33 million plus per year. And then there could be a 4th year option on that. But I would say in order to keep him, you'd have to give him at least 3 guarantee. I thought, and I understand Dylan's point. Dylan's not enamored with Cam Thomas like we are. I think that's reasonable. Look, Cam Thomas is a 6'2" 2 guard who can't play the 1 or the 3. He can only play the 2. He's gotten better defensively, but he's not Drew Holiday by any stretch of the imagination, right? So he has limitations, but these are very similar limitations that we put on Jalen Brunson. Very similar. And I'm not saying King Rigby. I'm not saying he is Jalen Brunson. I'm just saying these were the same knocks everyone had on Jalen Brunson. When Brunson signed that contract, everyone was like, that's outrageous. it ended up being one of the best contracts in the history of the NBA, right? So what I'm saying is I think 3 years, $100 million for Cam Thomas with an option for a $35 million option for the 5th year, I think is a pretty good deal. It gives it that it's not that I know that sounds like an insane amount of money, but it's not anymore. Jalen Johnson got more than that, right? Quickly got more than that. These guys got more money than that. I don't think that is an inappropriate sum of money for a guy that's producing, at least scoring at an all-star level. We can debate all day whether or not he's an all-star, but he's scoring like an all-star. So 3 years, $100 million with an option on the 4th. I know some people that's going to make some people think that's outrageous, but I mean that's what a guy like Cam Thomas goes for. LBL, your thoughts? What would you offer Cam Thomas if you were Marks?
LBO.
Yeah, what's up? I would say, I was thinking a little lower. I was thinking like, average 30 million, but I probably would have done it like 35 the first year, 30 the second, and 25 the third. That way you can trade him if you need to. Like if you end up drafting his replacement within, the next 2 years, then he's on a nice deal and he's still scoring. So I think that would do it for him. But I disagree with Dylan's take yesterday and today because you can't trade a sure thing, and right at this point I think it's pretty sure that he can score the basketball. So I don't think you should trade a 23-year-old guy, because remember we were all on the fence, like Breezy was going off, loving him, and it's fine. A lot of guys love his style and everything that he brings, and his offensive tenacity. But what I was saying is, it's a wait and see year for me. But so far, I've loved how he's adopted everything that Jordy has said. He's taken, he should feel insulted that he sees lesser guys with better deals than him, lesser productive guys with better deals than him. And then, so I would say that you don't trade him at this point, because we don't know. And I saw that deal, the Orlando deal. Like, I just don't understand it, because Jet Howard, if he was all that, wouldn't he be playing? They need scoring. So that's what I don't understand. Some of these guys, or like, remember Jonathan yesterday when they asked you what 2 guys would you keep? And you said Zaire and Wilson, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking, like, what's funny is, I'm a big Keon Johnson fan, right? But the deal is, both Keon and Zaire were drafted ahead of Cam Thomas, and they're still not the player Cam Thomas is, even if he is one dimensional, as what's his name, as Dylan says. That one dimension is a really important dimension, to be able to score.
I agree. Like I think we overlook that sometimes. Oh, he only scores. Yeah, that's how you win basketball games. You score more points than the other team, right? Like, I understand he's a limited player, but what he offers you, you can't go find anywhere else. Like, we get so enamored with guys like Cam Johnson. It's like, ooh, he can stretch. Okay, that's the only thing he can do. He can't rebound. He can't defend. He can't finish. He can't get to the line. He can't really do anything.
But he's Cam Johnson, Gary. He's a
25
twin.
feet away from the hoop. I heard the Knicks want him. I don't think the Knicks have anything to offer us, but like,
I see your point, because the thing is, Cam Thomas is a scorer. So if he's shot, remember, like that Knick game, that first Knick game, his shot was on from the very beginning, right? But if his shot is off, he still finds other ways to impact the game by scoring, or to draw double teams, which can help us score. So that is something that's not one dimensional. That's not one dimensional at all, So just the fact that he could be a decoy, and I disagreed with Jonathan's take about the end of that first Knick game because if you look at how it was, like they probably already knew the play because Cam Thomas was trailing the play, and there was no way he was going to have time to get a shot off if he would have found him, or because they had a guy shadowing him. So I think Dennis made the right play, but they really could have called a foul on McCall, but they're not going to in the Garden.
Right.
Home team always gets the whistle.
Nah,
Let me ask this, right? So would you guys agree when I say whatever team potentially trades for Cam Thomas, wouldn't want him as a 1-year rental? They'd want him for next year and then future years too. So they'd want to sign him is what I'm asking, correct? Would you guys agree with that?
I'd say it depends on I would say it depends on the age of the team and where they're at. Because and I'd say, but what you're saying is, I understand what you mean. You're meaning when he was saying, like, because I was surprised by when Dylan posted that, and he said we're getting these draft picks. I'm like, you're getting all of that for Cam Thomas, a guy who's a pending free agent? Wow. I mean, why would that team do that and then risk?
There'd have to be some kind of a.
I just don't. I mean, but like I said, if it's somebody like that's on the cusp and they feel like, well, his extra 25 will win us, something. But we also have to start looking at, because he's a different guy than some of these guys, like the late scorer guys that have been moved, like say like a Buddy Hield and stuff like that. Cam Thomas is still only 23. Buddy Hield was pretty much. He is what he was. You know what I mean?
When he got drafted, yeah.
Yeah. But I'm saying, but when he got, traded to these other two teams recently, or signed with the other team, it's like, so that's what I'm saying. When a team comes in and says, you know what, we need more scoring punch for the playoffs, so let's get Cam. But you still have to factor in, well, he is only 23, so, is he gonna be discarded afterward?
Well, let me pose this question, right? Because I love Cam Thomas. He's my favorite player on the Nets. Like, he's my favorite player that they've brought up in their organization. Since I don't even know who. Kittles, I guess. Like, it's been a while since they brought up someone I love, like Cam Thomas. So I don't mean to say this in a disparaging way, but he's not a guy that you can just plug and play in your offense. You have to build your offense around him, right? You have to design plays for him. You have to change your offense for him.
I disagree.
These are the all right. Well, I'll get to that. Let me start with Jonathan. Which teams here, with the teams with the cap space that would want to keep him next year, would have a package A and B the funds to sign him? I mean, how is this? To me, what's going to stop this trade from getting done is that they're not going to want to trade him just for the offseason, and if they do, they're not going to have a package the Nets are going to find attractive, right? Like, if I'm only looking at him as a rental, I'm not going to mortgage multiple first-round picks. If I'm going to keep him long-term, then I might. So it's like a two-part question. Which team there has both a package to score Cam Thomas and the funds to keep him?
It's such a tough question, Gary, because if I'm looking at two teams right now that have prospects and have draft capital, Dylan pointed out the first one, the Magic. I honestly thought his deal, that's a starting deal for me. If we're even thinking about trading Thomas, I need two prospects who are kind of like not at the top tier, but they're like middle tier. Like they're players that you want to potentially trade for somebody that you believe could be an upgrade over them. I look at, I thought Anthony Black and Jett Howard as two interesting prospects. Are they better than Thomas on scoring? No. But are there two pieces you'd want part of a haul with draft picks? Wait, you hear me now? Wait, Gary, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah, so like that's like a starting offer.
John, we can hear you. We got you.
Yeah, so that what Dylan proposed, like that's a starting offer, but the Magic might have to offer a bit more. I look at the Pacers; they got Benedict Mathurin, they got Jerice Walker, and they got a bunch of draft assets. But does Thomas want to be a sixth man on the team? I don't know if that would work with the Pacers. Now you talk about these cap space teams. Obviously, Washington has the second most cap space at $40 million to sign Thomas, but what do they have that we want? They really don't have anybody. And I'm not entertaining a Ben Simmons for Jordan Poole thing. I don't want Jordan Poole's contract. I don't think that helps us at all with our rebuild. I don't see why Washington would do it. The Hornets, they're an interesting team because they got LaMelo, they got Miller. I think they're missing that third piece, that third offense guy. I know they got that Trey Mann kid who they got from OKC who kind of showed some things against the other night. But if you compare him to Thomas, I think has a way more scoring advantage over him. But what could they offer us? Grant Williams? Like they don't really have a prospect on that team that makes us better in the future. So I wouldn't put the Hornets on us. And other than that, I don't see other teams that want him. That's the thing. So if I'm looking at two teams that could make a trade for Thomas if they really want to win, I look at the Magic, I look at the Pacers. But the Pacers, they're kind of almost near that cap apron. Miles Turner's a free agent next year, and I don't know if they have the money to re-sign him. So if they took on Thomas, I don't know if they'd have the money to re-sign him. So at the end of the day, Brooklyn probably should just re-sign Thomas because the money obviously works because they have over almost 80 to 100 miles of cap space. And if they try to go this route, I'm not sure Mark's going to get anything that's really going to help us right now, unless you really believe if you trade Thomas, you can get AG DeBosta in a year and a half. Because trading Thomas is not about this year's draft. We're in a pretty good position. We just got to trade the vets. But if you talk about 2026, if you get an Asa Cooper and you worry that them and Thomas are going to potentially get you a play in and out of AJ, okay, you trade Thomas, but you say you trade Thomas, you tank, and you don't get AG DeBosta. Sean Marks looks like a real jerk for doing that type of move, and you're going to piss off the fan base.
Say
so,
that right there, because that's the next question. That's the next question.
Mm-hmm.
Question I want to ask, but I want to get Breezy in here. Breezy just hopped on with us.
Breezy.
Tell them where they can find your podcast, which is an awesome podcast, and then possible suitors. Who's got the money and the package to keep and trade for Cam Thomas?
Thanks for having me on. You know, man, Nets fans is the best fans. I'm glad we rocking. To be honest with you, I ain't got no trade package. Dylan, he did come over and debate yesterday, and like I told him, like, yeah, they could have Schroeder because of the connection between Wagner and the Wagners and Schroeder and that whole national games that they did. That makes sense. But giving them Cam Thomas for Chet Howard is disrespectful. Like, and again, this is not a shot at Dylan. Dylan went to school for this. I'm not coming at Dylan. I rock with Dylan, but I disagree with him at the same time. I think that this is like some 2K shit that would be accepted, but for the fans and the franchise, it don't make sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, if you go on a 2K and you do a trade, it's going to accept the trade. But to make it make sense, Orlando, they need Schroeder for the scoring in the playoffs. They had a hard time trying to keep up with Cleveland. They might have to face a Cleveland, I'm just saying hypothetically, and they could use the offense from a Schroeder. Their defense on the perimeter is pretty solid. And then adding Schroeder to that perimeter, solid. But I heard some of the trade packages, they all trash. The other team wins for the most part, and this is where I was debating Dylan. I think he said what he said in a way as if we cannot get Ace Bailey or maybe a AJ DeBoncia if we keep Cam Thomas. I disagree. All of these players that y'all talking about, I want to see Cam Thomas next to. I seen him next to Ed Sumner. He played great. I seen him next to KD. He played great. So regardless of who his teammate is, he's always shown that he can play alongside of him. And this whole thing about him being a undersized guard, I've seen any guard that gets in a post with fucking Luka. They be putting Cam Thomas on Luka. Bro, if you want Cam Thomas to stop Luka, that's kind of ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not going to be able to stop everybody, but just because he's not just as good as he is on the defensive side of the ball, doesn't equate to him being, how you say, less than a lot of these guards. Because if we just talking, Gary, and I'm going to pass the ball right back to you. If we just talking top 2 guards in the NBA right now, same way y'all did the ranking for the 2021 draft, he in that top 10. And if he not in the top 10, tell me why.
I would have to go through the names, but I would say he's in the top. Let me get to LB. Let me get to you, Dylan. LB's been waiting. LB,
I was going to say,
you disagree.
Like definitely 10 guards better than Cam Thomas as of right now.
Two guards. Two guards.
Two guards.
Not specifically 2 guards. Okay, yeah. That I went to.
Well, I would say also that, Gary, the way that you're looking at it, for me, I don't feel like it's going to be a younger team. I feel like it's going to be a veteran team. Like the Lakers or Golden State or one of them
Wow.
Milwaukee trying to save their season, I think it would be one of those teams. Now I know they may not all have the draft capital, but it might have to be some kind of three-way deal. Yeah, but it might be some kind of three-way deal, like say Golden State. They might have to give Kuminga to another team and then get the draft picks to give us or whatever. This is what I'm saying. But I don't think it's going to be a younger team that is going to want Cam Thomas. I think, other than us. But I'm saying, so I really feel like it's a desperation move for him to move us. And I feel for us, it's a desperation move because when Dylan is saying, well, it's like there's no possible way, even if we get another 2025 pick, that means that all of a sudden we're getting a top 3 guy. Now I understand if he's saying that Cam Thomas helps us win games, but he doesn't help us win games as much as all of those veterans. Because one of the things that we have to keep in mind is young guys don't know how to close games. And even though Jordy could be a good coach and a good strategist and all that, it's like the veterans help us, like when it comes time to close games and everything. So we got to get rid of all of them. And and I'm including Ben in that too, just like I'm saying, like buy him out. If he's looking too good, buy him out. And this.
I want to get to that. I want to get to that in a minute. That's got to do with my
Okay.
next question. And AJ depends. Hey, hold on to that thought for 1 minute because I want to get that. But I want to get to Dylan first. Dylan, Breezy obviously disagrees with you on the value of Cam Thomas. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, but I guess I lean a little bit more towards Breezy's side. I think he's got one really super strength, and that's his scoring. But I think he's improved other parts of his game.
Definitely.
I mean, what would you expect to get from him in return? And is there a team out there that could offer that? I mean, without getting into crazy like 3 ways, which I guess is possible,
Yeah.
but is there a team right now you would look at that would want him and has a package for him?
Well, first of all, again, I feel like I keep having to reiterate this because people read between the lines and not actually at the full
No,
context. I don't want to trade. I don't want to trade Cam Thomas. Meaning for LBL,
Yeah.
I believe he just said something where I was full on wanting to trade Cam Thomas more than I want to trade the vets, which isn't true. I have no desire to trade Cam Thomas. I want him to be the player for our rebuild right now because worst case is he goes through the entire rebuild, we get the picks we need, and you can trade his ass later. Like, I don't think that he needs to be traded right now. But I agree in the sense that we need to trade the vets first, and I've been saying that since during the offseason. For me personally, though, the value of Cam Thomas, it's 50-50 just because certain teams view him as a guy who could be a top-tier scorer and need that, and other teams see him as a liability on everywhere in terms of everywhere else on the court besides scoring. So there's really no true value for him right now. You could be looking at, Jonathan Kuminga and a singular first-round pick, or you could be looking at Jet Howard and Cole Anthony for Cam Thomas and Dennis Schroeder, and they can give you like 3 first-round picks. Like, you don't know what the value is of him right now. And I think we're going to learn what his value is in the offseason, depending on what the offers are that teams with cap space are going to give him. If Washington
Dylan, can I say something to Dylan?
That could be a problem.
Yeah, for sure, Breezy. Get in there.
Again, I'm watching every game. I'm listening to every game. I'm recapping every game. When I say that I get to gauge how I value Cam Thomas, it's not because he's my favorite player because he got some fancy dribbles. It's the stats actually show it, and I've seen progress. And I'll tell you, Nets fan, it's because I've seen the progress with Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, Joe Harris, and Jarrett Allen, and I fell in love with those players the same way I was falling in love with Cam Thomas, the same exact way. The same way I am right now with Cam Thomas is the same way I was with them. Sign all of them. This is the core. The core 4 is what I coined it. Case in point is I'm putting Cam Thomas part of the core. Give me some of that feel back from that season. This is a player that we supposed to. He don't have to be the one guy, but to make it seem like he's like number 14, averaging north of 25 points in the league right now, and that's because and that's because Jordy Fernandez shows that I could play Cam Thomas as a volume shooter, putting up 22 when he's having a good night. You know, Cam Thomas was hot that first quarter, but if Cam Thomas is not hot, he won't go to Cam Thomas the whole game and give him 22 shots. I've seen Jordy Fernandez spread shots across the floor, across the roster, like 10 shots for Zaire Williams, or I can't remember exactly how he spread out the shot selection, but he implement Cam Thomas in the offense where he doesn't need to dominate the shot attempts, and he spreads the shot attempts between the teammates. And I'm saying if Cam Thomas on the offensive side of the ball can, do that, that's a transition from something that he's not used to in his career. And the significance is the efficiency. He was 6 for 10 in one game. He took 10 shots. A player like Cam Thomas, quote unquote, who could score like him on a different team, whether it be Luka, Kyrie, or whoever you consider, 9 times out of 10, it ain't no NBA game. They're going to play where they only putting up 10 shots. Jordy Fernandez is the biggest voice in the locker room, and I don't think it's about Cam Thomas becoming a superstar like Giannis, firing coaches and getting KD and doing shit like that. And that this is the icing on the cake. Is that he's no drama. Even with Mikal Bridges, we heard all of this shit about him and the Knicks fans and how they want him on the team because of the teammates and the shit like that with Villanova, yada yada. There is no drama around Cam Thomas. It's quiet. If we're not talking about basketball, we ain't talking about Cam Thomas. And I think Brooklyn Nets fans deserve a player like that, where we could just focus on basketball opposed to all of the things that come with it.
But there's no disagreement here. I think that you think that the debate is that I don't want Cam Thomas or I prefer to trade Cam Thomas. There's no debate in that. I've said it already. Keep Cam Thomas. I have no desire to trade Cam Thomas. I'm just saying that if there is a trade package out there, while we're in the midst of rebuilding, which we can't even do successfully, then
let's get to that.
Let me ask because I want to ask a question about the rebuild. I want to bring Jonathan in first because I know Jonathan and I know LBL wanted this to be a 2-year rebuild because I love the 2026 draft class. And this is a real question: Is Cam Thomas getting in the way of a rebuild? Like, is it possible Sean Marks look at Cam Thomas and say, "Yeah, that's a good player that I can get value for," but he's not part of a championship team? And he's going to win too many games for us over the next 2 years, so I don't want to resign him. I might as well trade him now because I want Ace this year or Cooper this year or Harper this year and then AJ Debinsa next year. Like, this is a 2-year rebuild, not a 1-year rebuild. John, I'll start with you because I know that you love AJ Debinsa.
Well, be honest with you, I didn't understand the hype around AJ, but after reading his draft profile and watching that, he had a game against Cam Boozer I watched a few weeks ago, it was about a month ago, and really, man, this guy's got a special vision. Like, when he doesn't score, you're like, okay, when's it going to eventually happen? When it happens, it comes in a lot of shots being fired in the hoops, man. Like, this guy has a special vision. Like, he's got the shooting touch already, and he hasn't even hit college yet, so I look at him as potentially being the creme de la creme of 2026. So I'm looking at this draft right now. Thomas isn't really getting in the way of that. It's been the vets. Dennis Schroeder, I mean, this guy's become a ringleader of the team. The way he can call his own plays with Jordy, has that trust. The way the young guys, round up around him. Like, Schroeder's been that second top scorer next to Thomas. Like, everybody says Johnson has been getting hot lately, but let's remember, in the first few games, Johnson was pretty abysmal, and he's been abysmal the last few games too. He's had some bad games here or there. So
he had about a 4-game stretch. Yeah, he had about a 4-game stretch.
But ultimately, like, the vets have been the reason why we're winning a lot of games. It hasn't been all Thomas. And I think playing Thomas at the 2 has been better for his career because if he was the point guard this year, he'd be gassed out, not even playing any defense. So Jordy's actually put Thomas in a position where he doesn't have to give you 40 points a night. Those 40-point games will come fewer this season, but they'll still be impactful nonetheless. Now, if we're talking about 2026, that's when it gets interesting. Let's say we draft an Ace or Cooper with Thomas, and you have Claxton, Clowney, and Wilson. I think that's a playing team the following year. I really do. I know it's going to take some time for Cooper and Ace to get adjusted, but if you have Thomas, who's already trying to become like one of the top stars in this team, you have an Ace or Cooper, you're probably potentially going to be a playing team, and that probably takes you out of the AJ Debinsa runners. I know people say, oh, well, the Hawks were a playing team, and they got that French player at number 1. But that was probably one of the worst drafts ever with role players. We're talking about AJ Debinsa and Cam Boozer, the 2 top prospects 2026. So if Marks potentially thinks that getting Thomas off this team will get us a shot at him, I can understand you to a fault, but also at the same time, why would you trade Thomas and then potentially risk not getting AJ Debinsa? That's the problem. If Sean Marks does that, he looks like a big jerk in front of the Brooklyn fan base. But you took away a potential young piece that was just getting started
let me
and
bring
being
Breezy in.
adored by Coach Jordy and his new teammates.
Let me bring Breezy in.
So like, there's a lot of risk there.
John, let me bring Breezy in real quick. Breezy, I know you're gonna have a difference of opinion. Is it possible that Sean Marks looks at Cam Thomas and says he's getting in the way of my plans to tank here? He's gonna win me too many games, and I don't really want him here long term anyway, and that's why he's on the trade block.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you got to expect Cam Thomas to do negotiations, and Sean Marks knows it's going to be negotiations. And again, when you contract,
Sean Marks likes him though, Breezy. I don't think Sean Marks values him. I really don't.
Yeah, but again, if he listening to this podcast, y'all should send this to Sean Marks. Send it to the Brooklyn Nets because they should hear it.
I've been trying to find his email for 10 years. Or no, I'm like 5 years. I hate him. Dude, that guy, listen. Actually, you know what? No, let me not even cut off Breezy. Breezy, you finish up. I'll go next.
Yo, I feel like Sean Marks, he should listen to the fans. You know what I mean? I don't know how he validate the fans if he out here really listening to podcasts. Is you tapped in? Is you really out here listening to what we want, how we want the team to be constructed? Because again, we got a voice now. Let's be realistic about it. At the end of the day, the podcast is moving around. If they're not paying attention, that's crazy work. Now, that being said, if Sean Marks, if you ever get a chance to listen to this, you should understand that, of course, you want Ace Bailey. That's why you're going to the Rucker games, or Dylan Harper. I get that. Fans see that. We on that. Cam Thomas, you want him part of that team. He's on the perimeter.
Breezy, did we lose you real quick? There you go. Oh. You're good. We just lost you for a second.
Oh, no. Yeah. I was, all right. To make a long story short, I was saying that to say, any player that you add, for one, this is what I said prior. Let's see if they could score this balls the same way that Cam Thomas did when he went to LSU, and it's all true. Dylan Harper can, Ace Bailey can, and Cooper Flagg can. So my question is answered. Now, case in point is, you already got somebody that that draws a double on the perimeter. With Cam Thomas, you don't get rid of him. You keep him, because if you get an Ace Bailey or the other players that I just mentioned, now how you going to guard him if you doubling Cam Thomas?
It's hard to get Cam off the pick and roll. Even if you try to ice him and send him to the baseline, he's still going to force up a shot and either get a foul or get an N1, right? Like, it's really hard to defend him.
Right, Gary. So Gary, my question to you, Gary, is what other players make the defense react like that, where they fighting over the screen, doubling, forcing the ball out their hand, and boom, ball down. So again, the company that Cam Thomas keeps, far as how the defense guards him, is the reason why you keep him. We cannot be blind. We will be blind and naive to think that pieces leave here and don't succeed, bro. Everybody else see the potential. Why we got to be the ones that don't see it? And it's our team.
I want to get Dylan to respond to that, because I agree. I think he's a really, really, really gifted scorer, and that opens up a lot of avenues for you. Like, even if you ice him, you send him baseline, he still fights off. He gets off a shot, 5 pump fakes, hits it, or gets fouled. He's at the line now where he shoots 85%. Like, either way, you win. Dylan, like, where are you if you trade Cam Thomas? I know you don't want to. I know you don't want to, right? But how are you replacing what he offers you? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah,
well,
how do you replace?
I think the easiest thing in basketball to find is a player who can score the basketball. Realistically, like,
I disagree, but
Nope.
okay.
Nope.
Because the problem.
Let him go.
The problem is that people are looking at scoring as if it's the almighty thing that wins you games. Realistically, the players that win games are the guys that can do it on both ends of the floor. The wings are the most important.
All right, so hold on. So let me ask you this. Dylan, let me ask you this. 2 things happen. One, Cam Thomas hit a step back 3 in New Orleans, game over. 2, Luka Doncic, such a great player on offense, fell asleep in the post, and it was a backdoor pass for the score for the game. So again, don't put it on. Hold on. What I'm saying is, no. What I'm saying is, hold on. What I'm saying is, box scores are box scores. When it come down to winning the game, Cam Thomas in less than 4 seconds is shooting 16 for 34. That's better than Tatum and everybody else in the league. So hold on. Again, no. And to your point, You don't think you're getting that from the 27th pick in the draft, respectfully. But you do. You did get that, so you should respect and cherish that. It's about protecting Cam Thomas. Y'all acting like just to
Yeah, but why are you
entertain and just
protecting him?
play him on the trade block.
Jesus?
Huh?
But he's not the next coming of Jesus.
No. Ain't no. I'm not saying that. I'm saying
incarnated.
No. I'm not saying. I never said.
I don't want to tag team. I don't want to tag team up. I don't want to tag team up on Dylan. Right? Like, go ahead, Dylan. You're breaking up a little bit, but go ahead.
So, yeah, I'm passing the bad service spot here real quickly. But can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah.
Okay. No, what I'm trying to say is that I have no desire to trade Cam Thomas. Cam Thomas is a good player, but again, we're comparing him to Luka Doncic, Kobe Bryant, Kyrie Irving. Like, come on, this is pure stupidity, and I'm sorry because I respect Cam Thomas as a player, but again, he has not shown that he can average 5+ assists a night. He has not shown that he can average 5+ rebounds a night. He has not shown that he can do this on a winning team. And guess what? We can't say that he didn't have the opportunity to. Alongside Kyrie, KD, and Harden. And even though he wasn't given a proper opportunity, during the moments that he had opportunities, he showed that he was a liability on certain ends of the floor. Correct or incorrect?
Absolutely. Let me. I want to bring Albie into here too. He's got limitations, but so does Brunson, right? Like so does Luka. So does a lot of guys, right? Zion can't hit
championships. That's why those guys don't win championships. Jalen Brunson has never done anything in his career outside of score on the Knicks, right?
Okay, he won playoff games when Luka was hurt, and then he carried the Knicks, and then the Knicks got hurt. Like, I'm not here to defend Jalen Brunson. We all think Jalen Brunson's a good player. I'm not a Knicks fan. I don't want to die on the Jalen Brunson
no doubt.
hill.
The only player that I have seen that's under 6'5" who can score 25+ a game and lead his team to a championship and win it is Steph Curry. Can you name me another person? Because Damian Lillard couldn't do it, and he was a top-tier scorer in Portland. I couldn't see Jalen Brunson do it, and he still has no chance of doing it right now because the Knicks aren't getting past the Celtics anytime soon, right? Who's out there that under 6'5" who can lead their team to a championship?
But it's just hold on, but it's Gary Dylan. Ain't it fair to say that we a team on the rise? Look at Philly and Milwaukee, bro. They falling off. Orlando stepping up, Pacers stepping up. You don't think Brooklyn is close with our draft pick? I don't think we should panic. That's
what happens when you pay a fat pussy a bag. I mean, I'm sorry.
But case in point, shit. In these neck of the woods for the last few seasons, they've been one of the teams that's supposed to be championship contenders. But they've been stuck in the second round. Atlanta made it. Case in point is Atlanta trying to get there too. Again, teams are falling off. I think we're one of those teams that's going to be on the rise. I ain't saying now, this season, like I said, it's like nobody even ready for us to be good. I
want to throw something at Dylan real quick. So it's like a two-part question. First, like you're in a playoff series, and you just gave up a 12-point lead on a 14-2 run, and you can't score a bucket. You can't get your offense going. Is Cam Thomas a guy that can come in and no matter what get you a bucket? If so, I value him a ton. That's A. And the second half of that question, a different question, but I want to answer both. The point you made about the 6'5" guys is fair. Do you think Cleveland can win a championship with Spider Mitchell, who's well under 6'5", as their predominant scorer?
When you put wings around them that can defend, like they do with Evan Mobley, who can also space the floor, like when you have a big man around him that can actually score more than 8 points a game, like Jared Allen does, who doesn't get bodied in the paint by Joel Embiid. When you have a point guard who can play make along the lines of Darius Garland can, I mean, that's a team that could contend. But at the end of the day, they have two guards who are under 6'3", and each year in the playoffs, we've seen them shit the bed. So to me, you need to put a guy like Dylan Harper or a Luka, something along those nature of somebody that can play alongside Cam Thomas. Or you need to grab a wing who can do it on both ends of the floor and score at the same rate as Thomas. Somebody like a guy like Ace Bailey or AJ DeBasta. So again, the debate on my end isn't trading Cam Thomas to help the rebuild, because if you get rid of all the vets, he's not winning games because he's not that impactful of a player. And I hate to say it, but again, there's maybe about 4 players in the league who are under 6'5" at the guard position who are actually impactful. Cam Thomas is not one of them on a winning team because we've never seen it yet. And you can't put him in a conversation or a hypothetical because he's putting up 25 on a shit team, right? So that's like Mikal Bridges putting up 26 in his 27 games as a net in the first season that he was here.
Hell no. Mikal Bridges ain't never seen this side of the ball. Not for real.
I mean,
you got
if we're
Cam
really talking
Thomas
right now. Mikal Bridges averaged more points a game in his 27 games when he first got here than Cam Thomas has this season. My point is if you are on a garbage team and you are the number one option taking the most shots, you're gonna put up 23 plus. It's not hard. We've seen guys like Sadiq Bey drop 50 in the league. Really? Scoring is the least. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, scoring is the least important aspect when you're looking at a young player's potential. Everybody in the NBA can score. Jared Dudley could go to a park in New York City right now and probably drop 30 on anybody. So
then how come once Cam Thomas comes out of the hang on, Dylan. I'm going to push back. How come once Cam Thomas comes out of the game, the offense completely stutters? If you could just give the ball to someone else,
because there's nobody else on the team that can create their own shot at the rate that he does. But again, the point is you want to grab multiple players who can do that. But the problem is you can't build around a undersized guard. It's not how it works.
I agree with Dylan that he's more of a second option than a primary option. And when he's your
for me personally, and I've said this before, Cam Thomas is a second option scorer, but a third option in terms of impact on winning a basketball game. Look at the Celtics, for example, right? Jason Tatum is their number one. He can do it on both ends of the floor. Realistically, Derek White may be a more impactful player than Jaylen Brown in terms of winning, because Derek White can play make. He can dribble, he can shoot consistently and efficiently, and he can defend at a high caliber as well as a smaller guard. So
Joseph Bovey in with the final super chat has a question. Says, so that's his fault that he's on a shit team. His skill set is his skill set. I value his skill set. I see him more than Dylan. How would you reply? Like, he's got a unique skill set.
Because he was on a skilled team. He played alongside KD and Kyrie, and whether the excuse is that he didn't get the minutes, during the minutes that he played, he was a liability. We've seen him on a good team. I don't care if it was 2 years ago, because the difference is people want to say, oh, this is his real rookie year. But they said the same shit last year. His real rookie year was 4 years ago. So you got to stop using that excuse, because we've seen players come into the league as late round picks and do things immediately. So
let me get Jonathan and LB on this too, because we've been dominating. I want to get their takes on this too. I haven't heard from you guys.
Well, as far as for Cam Thomas, I think that I never said that he'll be a number one option. He's a number one option on a lottery team right now. So obviously the plan is to get into the lottery this year and next year, and hopefully draft someone who's a cornerstone who will be that option one, and then the second year option 2, and then Cam is option 3. It doesn't really matter as long as all of them are, better than Cam Thomas.
I completely agree with that.
So
I completely agree with that. That's the vision.
So that's not a knock on Cam Thomas. It's just saying, you need these type of players. But on top of that, what I'm saying is I don't get into that stuff anymore, like with the short guys and this and that, because it is the composition of your team. Because we know Allen Iverson took a shitty 76ers team to the finals, and the only thing that stopped him from winning was because they had Shaq and Kobe. So it's like, it wasn't like that team wasn't built around Allen Iverson, because it was. And they went
25 years ago.
It doesn't matter what it was.
The game's changed a lot since then. I was the biggest Iverson fan in the world, but the game's changed a lot since then.
Yeah, because realistically, if you put Karl Anthony Towns in 1999, he's averaging 40, because there's no big man around that time.
No, he
yes, he is. There's no.
No, he doesn't have the heart to do that. Stop.
But in the regular season, through 82 games,
realistically, the NBA is more skilled today than it ever was. You could.
I agree. I agree with you. I agree with you.
But Michael Jordan took more career free throws per game than LeBron James has. So
I
realistically,
agree
I don't
with
want to hear
you
about physicality when Michael Jordan was going to the free throw line more than LeBron was, and everybody says LeBron has a whistle. So Karl Anthony Towns, with the agility that he has, at the height that he has, with the quickness that he has, and the shooting ability that he has, he would average 40 back in 1999. That's
all right. So then let's flip it. Then how much would Jordan average in this league?
He'd be the same as Anthony Edwards today.
He'd be.
I just want to. Dylan, I agree with you 100%. They're gonna cook you right. They're gonna hate that. I agree with you. Like he's Anthony Edwards.
No,
they're gonna hate that.
He's literally
100% agree with
Anthony
you.
Edwards.
No,
100% agree.
Yes.
100% agree.
no,
I've
he
got-
scored 20 points more than Anthony Edwards.
Michael
scored.
Jordan is greater
you
than
think
Anthony
Michael Jordan
Edwards.
scoring
From a
he-
skill
he-
set, they're not very different.
From a career standpoint, what did Jordan average? 32 a game, and that was in an era where
30
his
a
second,
year. Yeah, 30 a game.
Okay, so let's all right, because I love having this debate because it's very easy. Statistically, who was the second best shooting guard in the entire league back when Jordan was playing? From
Drexler.
the start of his
Well,
career
he
to the
played
end of his career.
14 years, so it might have changed from time to time. One
No,
No,
it was
it
time-
was
Drexler
the same,
predominantly.
it was
Clyde
actually the
Drexler.
same player.
Yeah,
it
it-
was the same player every year. Clyde Drexler was an offensive player and couldn't defend. So here's my second question:
He couldn't defend.
Who is his primary defender?
Yeah, I don't think you saw him play then.
I don't
I
think
watched
that's
Clyde Drexler play. He's a more offensive player than he was defensive.
that's
Oh,
true,
man.
but
He
he
could
can't
defend.
defend.
Correct to say?
He
He
could
was an
defend.
offensive player, but like he wasn't a traffic cone either. Like he,
No,
he-
no,
No,
not
he
at all,
could
but I'm just
defend.
saying,
He
you're-
could pass.
I'm just saying I'm just saying, in terms of Clyde Drexler, was he a more offensive player or a defensive player? You guys would know. You were around that time. I'm
I would
22,
say
so.
that because he could also play make, he was more of that. But he would be the
He's a-
guy that could block a shot to win a game.
So,
That's what
so
I'm
can
telling
you, so can you tell me who Jordan's toughest defensive matchup was throughout his 14-year career? Because I know who
Detroit.
it is.
Detroit.
No, I'm talking about an individual player. A guy back
one-on-one?
who could lock down.
But
Michael
it's
Jordan.
not an individual game.
Gerald
so what are we
Wilkins.
talking about?
Wilkins had his number four.
No, it's Gary Payton who was 6'1".
I was gonna say that.
No, it
next,
wasn't
yeah.
Gary Payton.
Yes, it was.
No,
Gary
Gary
Payton was
Payton
his
could not
toughest
hold
defender.
Jordan. Stop.
But that's my point. Nobody could hold Jordan.
No,
because
I'm talking
Jordan
about
was
it. Definitely
playing in a
wasn't
time
Gary
frame.
Payton. That's what
Gary
I'm trying
Payton
to
was
tell
his
you.
toughest defender by far.
No,
he
he
was a
wasn't.
primary matchup on him every single time they played.
No,
my
he
point
wasn't.
is that a 6'1" player back in 1986
He's
was his
Peyton's
primary
6'4",
defender.
bro. Peyton is 6'4".
Peyton's
Peyton's
6'4". Okay. Still, point being is that Jordan was 6'6" and high flyer with a post game. All of his matchups, 9 times out of 10, were somebody who was smaller than him or slower than him. Today's NBA, look at LeBron, for example. Who's been LeBron's primary defenders throughout his entire career? Because I can name all of them.
You tell me.
Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, Paul George, Kevin Garnett, Jason Tatum,
Andre Iguodala.
Andre Iguodala. The list goes on. My point is that the NBA is way more skilled today, and that transitions to today's NBA. Jordan is not scoring on a 7-foot athletic big man the way that he did against.
The big men
Who
were
do you wanna
better
name?
back then. Are
They
you
were
kidding
slow.
me?
They were
You
slow
think
as shit.
Claxton would be playing? You think Claxton would be playing in the Ewing and Hakeem era? He
You're
would
telling
not
me
be
that-
playing.
that-
He'd be
that
coming
is
off
You're
the
telling
bench.
me that a
LB,
7-footer
that
in
is such a-
1989 could guard a point guard in today's NBA.
They didn't have to. That's the whole point.
That's the whole point.
think
That's the
no,
whole point.
you
Michael
don't
Jordan
think that
Interesting.
Hakeem
can't score because when he goes for a switch off of a pick and roll, he's dealing with Karl Anthony Towns. He's dealing with Anthony Davis. He didn't have to deal with that back then because no big man could guard a guard. That's the
Well,
whole
I'll
wanna-
tell you this.
I wanna
You
ask
better
LB,
go.
but
You
LB, let me
better
ask you a
go
question,
ask
LB.
the Knicks. You better go ask
LB,
the Knicks because I do believe that he blocked Stark's 3-pointer to win Game 7.
Who
Right?
did, Jordan?
No, Hakeem.
I
He
wanted
can't
and
guard
I
a
wanted
guard.
to ask you about that, LB.
So-
Right?
so the one-
Hakeem is the
the one
best
exception.
defensive big man
Man,
and the
that's
best big
tough.
man I'd ever seen with my own eyes. Right? I'm not old enough for Kareem or Wilt, so with my own eyes, Hakeem is the best big man I'd ever seen. Besides Hakeem, put him to the side. He's a unicorn. Besides him, in 1999, who has a prayer defending Karl Anthony Towns? Who has a shot? Either
David
inside-
Robinson.
he's getting cooked. You know he can't guard
No,
him. He
there's
can't guard him
no
25
way.
feet from outside.
Oh man,
David
you are
Robinson's
bugging
great,
out.
but he's not guarding.
So hold
I'm
on,
saying,
bro.
I'm saying Karl Anthony Towns is getting checked by guys who are 6'9". Come
But the
on,
point is,
stop.
how are you
Scoring
getting checked when you're not
91%
playing
against
in the paint?
Towns. It's wild.
How are you getting checked when you're not playing in the paint? Karl Anthony Towns spacing the floor. No big man in 1989 is going out to the perimeter to guard a
Olajuwon.
3-point
Olajuwon.
shot.
So hold on.
Don't they
So
have
hold
to
on.
play
You trying
both
to
ways?
you trying
Don't
to tell
they
me
have to
Cam
play
Thomas
both
couldn't
ways?
score back then? Cam Thomas could
Cam
score back
Thomas-
then.
Cam Thomas
Let's
is
go
getting
back
30 a
there.
night
How
back
did
then.
you
100%.
I don't
understand.
understand.
I'm saying that anybody in today's
I'm
NBA
saying,
could
so then
score
how's
better
he
than
gonna
anybody
guard-
back then.
How's he going to guard them in the paint? He's going to have foul trouble. He's going to be out of the game by the second half.
How so? I thought it's a more physical era. So if he's fouling like he is in today's NBA, doesn't that mean he wouldn't get foul calls back then because it was a more physical league?
No, he's fouling because he can't play that kind of defense because these guys are that much tougher. That's what I'm saying. They had real
Toughness
post
doesn't
moves.
result in
He's
points.
not used to seeing real post moves. He's used to seeing
So he
guys
hasn't played against
shoot
Alperen
jumpers.
Sengun, Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid. He hasn't
Those
played against
guys
any of
are
these guys.
not post players like
Joel
Hakeem
Embiid is
and all of
literally
those
just a
guys.
flopping 3-point shooting version of Shaquille O'Neal. That's
Yo,
Wow.
Go ahead,
wow.
John. Let me get John. I haven't heard from John in a minute. John, get in there.
No, listen, you guys make some very interesting points, but I kind of want to bring the plane back a little bit here to about Thomas. Listen, it's only been about 15 games. I would say this. He has improved a lot on the things we want him to improve on. I think his defense is a lot better, just being the two. I think his rebounding has improved a lot more, assist playmaking, and his scoring is more efficient. I like the fact that Thomas doesn't have to give you 40 points a night to have a good game. I think that's evolutionary play for him that Jordy wants to instill, and I think that's what's made Thomas's game a lot better. Now it's a good segue point. Now you look at somebody like Nick Claxton, a guy who has all the things that people ding on Thomas: the height, the rebounding at a more higher clip, the defense. But so far,
Athleticism.
yeah, athleticism. But so far this season, we have not seen any of that from Claxton. I know people want to say, "Oh, the injury thing," and then we were on your show, Breezy, last night. And probably people can say, "Yo, John and Joey were too hard on Claxton because now he had a back injury." Well, first of all, this is the first time we're hearing he had a back injury since this summer. So I don't know what's wrong with Brooklyn's medical team, but this lack of transparency on
John,
players' health is
John,
whack, man.
if Dylan
It's
can
whack.
say if Dylan
Yeah,
can
now we
say
do want
that,
to see a healthy Clax for sure.
hold on,
No,
but if
no,
Dylan
but
can
Breezy,
say that,
the thing is, we already had a Ben Simmons problem. Now we got a Nick Claxton, Ben Simmons 2.0
yeah, you know
problem.
why? Because
Yeah,
if
too damn
Dylan can
similar.
say that Cam Thomas is one dimensional, so is Nick Claxton. He can't score.
But it's even worse though, because at least Thomas, if he really tries, he's been getting a lot more steals this season. That's Thomas's best defense this season, has been getting steals when people aren't expecting him to do that. Claxton, he can barely give you more than 2 mid-range shots in 15 games. He can't even
That's
take
what
a
I'm saying.
three.
He's
All
one
right, guys,
dimensional.
let me swing this back to Cam Thomas, and I got to wrap this. But I kind of want to just go around and get your take on it, and then I got to wrap this up. We'll just go around. John, I'll start with you. If you had to, I'm not saying that you want to, but if you had to trade Cam, no one here wants to trade Cam Thomas, correct? Everyone wants to keep.
That is
ideally,
correct. I'll be
Yeah,
the first to
right.
say it, so this way the comments don't tell me I'm not trying to say that.
Yep.
So what I wanted to ask was, if you had to trade him, if Sean Marks decides that we're going to trade him, where would you want to send him, and what do you think we can get? Is it a player? Is it 3 picks? What do you think that we can get in return from him? I just want to go around and get everyone's take. What could we get from him? What's a reasonable expectation? John, I'll start with you.
Well, I brought up these two teams when you first asked me the question. I think the Magic and the Pacers, they have picks, they have young prospect players, and obviously you're not just trading Thomas by himself. You have to put Doe, Dayron, or maybe Johnson involved. I don't think Johnson works with Thomas for Magic, but Dennis does. I think with Pacers you could package Doe and Dayron with Thomas. But other than that, those two teams, they're near the apron, so I don't know if they'd have enough cap space to give Thomas a new contract. So that would essentially be like a rental for them. I don't think they want to do that. Washington, who has the second most cap space, there's no reason for them to want Cam Thomas right now. And I know LBL, you said a veteran team like the Lakers, the Bucks. Listen, whoever did that thing about the Bucks, you're a fool because they have 1 draft pick to offer. Am I really going to look at that 2021 pick and say that that's going to give me a superstar in 6 years when I want to win in like 2 to 3 years? I don't get that. So looking at it realistically, after all that, your best bet is to re-sign Thomas right now. The timing for trading Thomas doesn't make sense right now. And Breezy, unfortunately, as long as Marks is involved, I feel like Cam Thomas will always be involved in trade rumors if there's a better player than him. And that's unfortunate, but that's a Marks problem. That's not a you, me, Gary, or Dylan problem. We're just trying to go by what the facts are telling us. And right now, unfortunately, it seems Marks doesn't value Thomas. So I hope Thomas stays this season, but if he gets traded, I think it's a fool's move. But right now, Thomas just needs to keep improving and build his value up, and he'll likely get his bag. So right now, the best thing for the Nets is to keep Thomas and not trade him unless a team really wants him, which I don't know if that's going to work this season.
Yeah, if San Antonio called you up and said, "I'll give you a Wemby for him," okay, now I've changed my calculus.
Yeah.
Realistically, yeah. I mean, any realistic trade, I don't think is going to work out.
No, because
either.
the problem is there's actually Nets fans out there that would say no to that because there are people out there that are truly delusional and think Cam Thomas is the next second coming of Jesus. So it's like that's the problem. The problem is no matter what franchise you're a fan of, you're going to overvalue some of your homegrown talent. Like Nick Claxton has been severely, not overrated, but overvalued just simply because he hasn't improved his game since the second year in the league. Like, he can play defense.
Right.
He gets bodied by some of the top bigs, and he can't even average a double-double. So it's like, what are we doing? We just paid that guy $25 million. Same thing with Cam Johnson. Same thing with Joe Harris. We've paid all these guys horrible contracts, and they don't improve. Cam Johnson's improving because they're actually trying to raise his value. Like,
Right.
there's certain things that you can and can't do, and one of those things is starting to overpay guys who are just not improving in certain parts of their game. You see that by year 3 or 4. Claxton's in year 5 or 6. Cam Thomas is in year 4. At some point, you have to look at these guys and say they're not going to improve on the things that some of them need to. And that's when you have to make the executive decisions on which ones to get rid of and which ones to keep.
So if we were to trade Cam Thomas, I know you don't want to, so I'm not putting that in your mouth. I'm just saying, if we were, hypothetically, what do you think we could get for him? What's a fair...
Orlando's the only place that I'd want to trade him. And the only reason for that is because they have a solid first-round pick this year, which is Denver's top 5 protected. So I would say one of either Anthony Black or Jet Howard, and then Gary Harris as a salary filler, plus 3 or 4 first-round picks. To me, you're getting a young player, you're getting a salary filler, which you can move off of at some point, and you're getting some valuable draft picks. That's it. Because at the end of the day, we can say that he's gonna be an all-star all we want. We can say that he has all-star caliber scoring, but at the end of the day, he has a fat 0 next to his all-star game appearances. So if you're getting offered 3 or 4 first-round picks for a guy who's never been an all-star, you take it 9 out of 10 times. That's just how any general manager is going to look at it. Same thing with Mikal Bridges. We weren't getting 6 first-round picks offered. We weren't getting 5. We weren't getting 4. We got offered 6, and he jumped on it immediately. Why? Because when you have an offer in front of your face that you can't decline, you take it for any player in the league. It doesn't matter who it is.
Agreed, Dylan. I think that's an excellent haul. I don't want to make that trade, but if you were to trade him, I think that's an excellent haul. Dylan, tell everyone where they can find you and tell them about your podcast.
Yeah, so feel free to subscribe to us on YouTube at the BK Network Podcast or on Twitter, BK Network Pod. We will be doing another live play-by-play here shortly. We'll announce it at some point soon. Jonathan's usually on it. Gary was on it last time. So we'll try and get the group back together at some point. And feel free to subscribe to us over there. We're trying to hit 200. So I believe we're at 143 right now. So if you want, feel free to head over and subscribe. And Gary, I appreciate you having on, but I'm going to head out.
Sounds good, Dylan. Thank you. Appreciate you for hopping on. Really do. Breezy, tell them where they can find you. Tell them about your podcast. And then I know you don't want to make the trade. You love Cam Thomas. I love Cam Thomas. The last thing I want to do is see him go. But if you had to trade him, if that was the decision that was made, what do you think you'd get in return for him?
I would have a back and forth. I would just be honest, like what equates the productivity that he gives into contract on a realistic side to what you said. Like, what is the realistic side of it? You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you want to see what's best for the team. Like me, for real. Like, shout out to Mr. Whammy, but I want to see the team win. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Mrs. Whammy, rest in peace. I know she watching from heaven, but I wanted to, in their lifetime, I wanted to see them win. I want to see us win. I think we could win with Cam Thomas. And again, I hear what other fans are saying, and I respect your question. But I will ask that question because I don't have the answer. With contract to productivity, where else could we get that in the NBA? What upstart? What you know what I mean? I mean, and again, heavy emphasis on who will be willing to negotiate and get back in return. Because again, let's look at the success of Sean Marks in the free agency and the draft and what transactions he did to say that he was successful. Why be hasty is the question. Harden, in my opinion, was a hasty move, regardless of what fans say. Or the big three only played 16 games together. Cam Thomas played 67 games last season. Respectfully. So this is a player that stays healthy. So again, all of these players that might come here might be better than Cam Thomas. Let's look at that stat. Did they play 67 games out of 82? So again, I will revisit this question over and over. But Gary, I will be pondering and wondering and asking myself, why would I do such a thing? And if I were, Like I just couldn't. It's unfathomable. You know, I don't know how a player where I could get the same productivity back. Would it take a player and draft picks? I mean, obviously, and I'll land a plane saying this. This is the first time in a long time that Sean Marks been on the upper hand on the negotiating side of what he's going to do going forward with the team. I think he should take full advantage and, you know what I'm saying, not pretty much entertain these trade packages, because if you look at what points he's scoring in the other contracts that score before him, 1 through 13, look what they getting paid. Look at all of the stuff he sat through. He sat through two bad coaches who didn't give him minutes, and he ain't complaining or nothing. And he want to do business with you. Why you don't want to do business with him?
He's been treated unfairly for sure. Like, he's never, up until right now with Jordi Fernandez, in his first 3 years was never given a fair shake. I mean, he was like
Right.
Joe Arena said, he keeps taking criticism, he keeps getting hated on, he keeps putting the ball in the basket, right? Like, he's never been given a fair shake. I agree with you on that, Breezy. Tell everyone where they can find your podcast because it's really good.
Big fan Breezy on YouTube, and you can find me in the chat when, you know what I'm saying, Gary go live. Love the show.
Appreciate you, Breezy. LBL, let you close it off. You can finish us off.
So
Thomas, go ahead.
Well, yeah. So as far as for Cam Thomas, I don't really know the team, but I did put, as I put in the chat, that I don't think this is the time to trade him, because trading him for unknowns is, it doesn't make sense to me. So I think, and you still need some kind of draw to have fans come, and that draw is, will Cam get 40 tonight? So even that is part of it, and he's only 23. But in terms of there was something that I wanted to say, and it's just, I don't understand that if we try to get rid of this guy, it's like I don't. It doesn't make sense to me at this point. It just really doesn't. I think that he's done everything, that he's been the good soldier. He's done everything, and sometimes those optics count as well, because remember, KD and Kyrie were looking at the optics of how the Nets did all of these little extra little things for teams, and the agents were talking really good about them at that time. Right before we got them, we did certain things like release guys, or let guys go to other teams, or Sean Marks paid off someone, and this and that, and those things set up good things for our organization. So now, if you're telling me this guy who didn't get to play most of his first 3 years, and now he's adapted his game, he's been trying to do as best as he can, and he's got to be butthurt that he doesn't have a contract yet, even though he averaged 22 a game last year, and so I think that it's kind of like bad optics for people, and to think, and this is the thing that I just don't understand with like Gary's logic. With Dylan's logic, Gary. I don't understand, if he's that bad, how are we getting that many draft picks for him?
I don't think Dylan thinks he's bad. I just don't think he values him as much as we do. He thinks. I disagree with his take that scoring is the easiest thing in the world. He comes up the court. The Nets have 15 guys on their roster. Not one of them can put the ball in the basket, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't agree with. I think what he does is way more valuable, which is why I value him different. Like I said, in a playoff series, when the defense really tightens the screws, and you can't score at all, he can get you a basket. I want him if I'm a good team.
That's a fact.
Yes, yeah, and so that's my point with if like Orlando, like I guess that means Orlando's going all in, so they're going to give us all of that. I don't think that at this stage they're at that point where they should go all in and give up all of that stuff. I mean, Cam Thomas is a great talent, because right now he's a greater talent than he is a player, but he is only 23. So, and this is my point. So I guess Dylan kind of looks at him like he is what he is. But me, I look at him and I see the improvement from over the last year and the year before. And I'm like, if he's only 23, he can still get better.
He's still get bigger, stronger.
Yeah, and I don't mean by scoring. I just mean he can get better as a player. And so I wouldn't be ready to get rid of him at all.
Agreed. John, you had one last thing you want to say? I got to wrap this up. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll wrap it up. Guys, if you ever want to talk to me on Twitter about basketball, you can find me at OS91413John. What's great conversations. Got some little breaking news. It seems Joel Embiid and Paul George will both be out tonight. Cam Thomas is coming back, same with Claxton. So it looks like while the Nets are getting healthier, the Philly 76ers are, for some reason, getting worse. So I don't know how that impacts tonight, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. But
Are
yeah,
you
that's
predicting
the
the
news.
2020 game for Claxton?
I want to just see Claxton give me 10 points tonight. Like
10
I know
points,
his
10
back is
rebounds.
still
10
bothering him,
and
but
10.
try to get 10. But you're facing Drummond. Listen, Drummond has been horrible this season. I mean, his rebounds been atrocious. If Claxton can't even do a little bit better rebounding than Drummond, we got to start talking about if Claxton should be on this team or not. Because I look at Thomas and all the improvements he's trying to make. Claxton, I'm not seeing any improvement or him just trying. Like, he's got to show a little effort tonight. If he could show effort, I'm going to give Claxton some credit. But if not, we got to start looking at him with the trade deadline stuff because this is unacceptable if he's just going to give you one field goal and nothing else to it.
All right. Appreciate you guys. Great
Thanks a
show
lot,
today.
guys.
Thanks everyone
Great
for coming
show,
on.
man.
From Texas
Yeah.
to the world. Thank you. God bless. Breezy, LV, everybody. John.
Right.
No problem, Gary.
Later.